There we go. So what I'll do, if everybody goes to Mark's picture at the top,
Yeah.
and then goes to the three little buttons,
Yeah.
and pins it, and that will put Mark on your main screen.
There he is.
And then just if you mute yourselves, if you want to ask Mark a question,
okay,
then unmute and then mute again. All right, over to you, Mark.
Handsome chap, if ever I've seen one.
Absolutely fine, absolutely fine. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to, well, personally, I feel very privileged to be invited by Derek to be involved. It's always nice to meet new people in this world, isn't it? My name's Mark Roberts. I own a fly tying company called Lost Lake Fly. We sell materials, flies, and do lots of other things as well. But less about that, more about the tying tonight. This has all come about very similar to you guys, because I'm also key admin on Fly Fishing UK Still Waters and Rivers Facebook group, and I run a Friday evening live tying session most Fridays. Not one this Friday because there's rugby on, but most other Fridays I do. And it sort of developed from there, and it sort of developed into a YouTube channel and various other things as well. So and I just tie for fun as well as sort of semi-professionally tying for people and things. And I do particularly like tying dry flies and nymphs, but recently I've been branching out into the world of other stuff. So I thought I'd sort of start off tonight with looking at something like this, because I've said over the last 2 seasons I've got into hunting for bass and for mullet down here on the south coast, and I just thought I've always resisted tying the flies, but the other day I sort of Semperfly sent me a shed load of free samples of all of their predator fiber, so I thought, why not just try and see what I can do. So this is part of the overall learning journey, and this is one of the ones that I originally came up with. It's a little bait fish pattern for bass, and this was the first one I ever tied, and this is the one that we're going to have a go at tonight. And feel free, if you've got any questions, to throw stuff out there. I am sure things will go wrong. I am sure, as they always do, and I'm hopefully got everything around me. But if you see me disappear off, it's because I'm picking stuff up. But feel free to ask any questions you like, and I'll try and answer them as we go along. Right, okay. So
sorry,
I'm going to start
question,
off.
Mark. That's quite a big fly you've got there. So what sort of outfit, what setup would you have for that sort of fly?
So for this guy, I'd be quite happy with a 6 weight or a 7 weight with a floating line.
Blimey.
Yeah, because there's not a lot of mass to this at all. Because it's hollow inside. It's hollow, so that literally all we've got is the hook. And it's not as big as some of the other big flies that you can get that are going to cause sort of that sail effect when you bring it round behind you. It will have a little bit of air resistance, but no, a 6 or a 7, perfectly fine for this guy. It's when you go to his bigger brother.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we're heading into 8 and 9s and above. You need something pretty substantial that's got that flex, but also the strength to power through with it. And in fact, I'm off on Sunday onto the test at Timsbury to actually hunt some pike with these flies. So I'll either be successful or I'll catch myself with them. I'm not 100% sure.
Tight lines, mate.
Okay. Yeah. The weather's going to be atrocious allegedly, so right. So I'm going to start off hooks. Now, saltwater predator hooks it's a new area for me, but I really do like the RX hooks. I don't know how many of you use RX hooks, or anthrax hooks as we've decided that we call them. But the RX hooks, and I'm going to use one that's a curved Gammarus. Actually, it's a saltwater curved Gammarus shrimp hook, size 6, but it's great for short shank bait fish patterns as well. And it's got a beautiful beautiful gape on it. Let me just adjust the vise. Get it in. There we go. Right. So, and that's all I've got to play with here. It's tiny, and I wish I could zoom in really, but literally I've got about 1 centimeter of space there to tie and get that into play. Okay. And it sounds complicated, but it's pretty straightforward. I'm gonna look like Mr. Bean now. So I'm using a 6/0 thread in a large Magnum right bobbin. I quite like the right bobbin because I can press at the base here and it tightens, and when I let go, it gives me some freedom to stretch the and pull my thread. I'm going to start at the eye and just work my way all the way back. Now, I like touching turns. I was brought up in Cardiff Reservoirs Fly Fishing Club back in the 80s, where I was adopted by a load of old blokes who taught me how to tie flies and fish, and everything had to be touching turns. And if you didn't do it like that, then oh man, it was all wrong. So we get rid of the tag end and the waist end. Now, what I like to do first is, because ultimately what I want to do is I want to get that fly out, and I've got to think about the action in the water. So I'm going to come up with some bucktail. So I want these white bits here because I want a bit of rigidity in the back section of the tail, so it keeps form. So although it will pulse, it's not going to flop and be unnatural. So I'm going to take a section of bucktail and about a thickness of a piece of spaghetti, should we say? Thickness of a piece of spaghetti. Don't go too thick with it. And I don't need to stack it or anything, because actually it's got quite a nice tapered profile anyway. And you want it quite long. So I'm looking at the length of I've got 1 centimeter there. So I'm gonna put at least another 3, 4, about another 1, 2, 3, 4, another 6 centimeters or so sticking out. You can make it longer, you can make it shorter. It's completely up to you. And I'm just gonna do a pinch turn, pinch wrap, pull down, then I pull up and it traps it on the top of the hook so it doesn't spin round. And then I'm going to bring my tie-in thread back down, and it just holds it into place. And then just tidy up. Press the bobbin then. Just tidy up towards the eye. Couple more turns. Normally I've got all my scissors out, but I tidied up just before this. And I'm just going to give it a snip at 45 degrees and taper it down and just hold all of that down, and then bring it towards the back. Don't worry if it flares. We're not too worried about that at all, because it's all going to be part of the fly. What I'm now going to do, and I didn't do this on the last one, what I'm now going to do is I'm going to make some use of these bloody great big feathers I get on the ends of my capes. So this is a grizzle saddle that I inherited. It's massive, and I've got loads of feathers on here that because I'm used to tying 18 to 20 dry flies. So some of these I'm never ever going to use. So what I like is the ability to choose some of these large feathers and actually put them to use for once. So I'm going to take 2 and give them a pull. Don't want to come out. There you go. They didn't want to come out. Get that one. Going to give it a pull. There we go. And give another one a pull. And what I like about the grizzle for this is that because of the barring, it sort of gives a bait fish type lateral line, as well as a scaly pattern. You often see a lot of these with white added in as well. So I've just cut it so it's the length of the tail, a little bit longer. We're just going to tie them both in on the side. So I'm just going to just strip away the lower end Like so. And this is where a rotary vise becomes really quite useful. Just turn it on its side, place it on, and hold it with my finger up and over, 2 and a third turn, and I've trapped that in there, and that's going to give me a lot of movement in the water, because obviously bass are predatory fish. They're going to be chasing small bait fish. I want this to look like I suppose a small baby mullet, and we get loads of those down here on the south coast. And next month, that's when I'll be starting to target those guys down in Chichester, and that's as frustrating as anything. And then I'm just going to do the same on the other side, and I'm not going to worry too much about how tidy it looks underneath, because all that's going to be hidden. Just take it down and bring it back up. Just hold those in. So I've got this nice wiggly floatiness, for the want of a better term, going on here. Okay, so now we're gonna look at the body material. So I'm going to use some of this fiber. Now, as I said earlier, my domain usually is nymphs and dry flies and a few exotic terrestrials. And although I was given this by Semperfly, I had some stuff that I'd been given, and it was just in a drawer, and I didn't know what to do with it. So it's quite nice to be able to get it out. So here I've got some silver bait fish. You can't really see it, but it is a grading of different colors running through here. So I've got some silver bait fish, predator fiber, and the predator fiber, it compacts quite a lot. So if you take a cone, just run the cone through it, you can see the sort of effect you're going to get, and you lose a little bit, but not significant amounts. You can see that it can make a really fluffy profile, and you don't need a massive amount of it. This is only a small fly, so I'm going to take about a HB pencil width of fiber, like that, because I can always reduce it down if I need to. I'm going to take my scissors. I'm going to cut up towards the middle section of the hank, so I don't waste any. One thing I learned very quickly, and this is part of my learning journey, was to have somewhere on the side to put the hanks of material, because otherwise you end up with this massive mound of material all over the place. So I'm just going to place it over on the side, and then I can pick it up again. So there's our material. So what I'm going to do is I need to taper it, because at the moment it's got a cut end to it, and the tapering is pretty straightforward. So it's a case of just twisting it in your fingers and running your fingers down this material, and bringing it out, and you start to get this taper at the end, and you can just find the middle and just pull the middle, pull it out like so, and then give it a twist like that, and we got that taper. So you can imagine that that's going to go on, and it's going to form that tapered end, tail end for the caudal fin of the bait fish. So that's what I want there. So I'm going to put it in, and I'm going to tie one in so it's the length, or just shorter than the length of the bucktail and the fiber. So about that'll do. You see there, but I'm not going to tie it in this way. I'm going to do what's called a hollow tie. So I'm going to turn it round and tie it so it's over the eye like this. I'm going to put a pinch wrap to lock it in place. One, and just give it a little pull. Two, give it a little pull, and a third to lock it down. And then I'm just going to bring my finger in, and I'm just going to position it so it goes down the side of the hook. Now this end, I'm now going to trim off. Like that. Okay. Then I'm going to repeat the process. I'm going to taper the end. Now, thankfully, the reverse end is already tapered because I tapered one end. The other end should already be tapered. So I'm just going to twizzle it, give it a twist. There we go. Twist. And I'm going to turn my fly upside down. And I discovered a really cool use of, you know, the magnetic fly patches that you can get. I've got 2 of them on the pedestal base of my vise, and it holds my my bobbin perfectly. It stops it spinning and stops it moving around, and they're just magnetically held in place. It's you know, it's quite nice not to have to worry about it. I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to do exactly the same, but this time on the underside. So I'm going to come in on the underside. I want it, you can have it the same length if you like. I'm just going to come in actually a little bit shorter for the underside, and you'll see, because you see the effect that gives it when we've finished. And I'm just going to hold it on the top, and I'm going to pinch wrap and drop it down just to hold it in place. And then a second turn just to hold it again. And I'm going to come in position, pull tight, and then put a third, and I'm going to put a final 4th wrap in. I'm a big advocate in fly tying to use the minimum number of wraps you can to reduce bulk and unnecessary hideousness, I suppose, in my flies. Now, what we now do is this bottom section, I'm going to split in half. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm going to split it in half, like so, and just give each one a little twizzle. And I'm just going to bring them round behind and along the side at the bottom. Then I'm going to spin my vise round, and I'm going to just push the top section across the top. And then I'm going to build up a thread dam in front of the fibers. I'm not going to go over the fibers. I don't want to trap them at all, because the thread dam is going to push them back and keep them in place. You want a bit of volume, and this is why we call it a hollow wrap, because within there now it's all hollow. There's nothing inside there, and you can spend a little time just positioning. As you develop the fly, it will start to take more and more shape, and you just keep building up that thread dam until you're happy. There you go, until you're happy. Yeah. Now, I'm not gonna fill that whole section with material. It's sort of counterproductive. So I'm actually going to bring my thread about 4 millimeters down further. Now this time I need a bit of color, need a bit of flash to put in here. So I've got some of this sculpting flash fiber by a company called H2O, and comes like a big chunk of fiber, and it's a case of just giving it a bit of a, and then just picking off a section like that. And you've got these long strands, these long fibers here, and then I've got a bit of shimmer in there as well. If I haven't got enough shimmer, I'll just take some more off and just add it in. Any of the long sections that are just loose, I'm going to pull off. Now, obviously, that's way too big to put in there, so I'm just going to reduce it down a little bit. Give it a twist. You can probably see the twinkle there that we've got. And by doing that and just pulling out the ends, I've got my taper again. Now, for this bit, I want these sections to sit down the side of the fly to form part of the lateral line, but it also hides any sections that you haven't quite covered. So it's quite a cunning, part of the tie. And I've got it there. And what I want to do is I need an equal amount either end. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in and cut that so that I've got a much smaller piece, and then give it that twist to get it to form that taper. And it doesn't take much at all to do this. Now, at this point, I'm going to put in what's called an X tie. So it's going to sit on the top. The X tie is a really, really useful technique because it allows us to be able to bring things down the side. And you can add flash, and you can add color, you can add stripes, you can do all sorts of things. So I'm going to add this in. I want it to be about the same length as the top section. So I'm just going to place it on top, put my thumb on top. I'm going to put 1, 2, and that's across there. And then I'm going to take my other section. What did I do with it? There it is. The other half. Spend a little bit of time just twisting. Quite therapeutic, this. Particularly as I haven't got much hair of my own. So quite nice. So, and then I'm going to come in and I'm going to do the same going across the other way. You can probably tell why we call it an X wrap now. An X tie. So in it goes. And I'm just going to bring that and a third to lock it in. So it's in a cross across the top. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two sides, near closest to me, and I'm going to bring them back along the edge and along the back of the fly. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. And I'm going to hold those in place like that. Now this time I do want to go over those pieces, because that pushes them into the position that I'd like them in. And then it's a case of just tidying up this little section here and just getting rid of the step that's going to form. We've got a step here, which is an absolute pain because your thread is going to start to slip. So I'm just, that's it. I'm going to make that into a nice little taper. You're not going to see any of that, but you can probably just now start to see the profile that we've got running through there. Okay, and we'll mess around with it a bit later on. And we just repeat the process then. So I'm going to bring my thread down, get rid of my fiber. I'm going to take, got the bit from last time, I've got the remainder from the last bit. You can see that the ends are where I've cut them. Okay, I want it to go on here, so I'm going to twizzle it in my fingers from end to end. You're going to lose some of the fibers, don't worry about that. And then I'm going to find the middle sections and I'm just going to tease them out. There we go. And I've teased out. So both ends become tapered. Now, as you move down the fly, make them gradually shorter, because that gives you that shape, that fishy shape. And then, so I'm just going to repeat the process. I'm just going to measure it up. As my dad would say, measure twice, cut once, but then never follow that and make a mess. So I'm just going to put that in there, have a look at it. Yeah, happy with that. Come in, tie it on the top, my finger on the top, let it come round the side. I'm not worried about that. I put 4 turns in just to lock it in place. Take that off, reverse it. Got the other end that's tapered, and the other end is shorter as well. So just measure it, bring it in, finger on top. 4 or so turns. Come in, angle, just chop those off. Get rid of anything that looks unsightly. You can see that my top now is slightly longer than my bottom. So I'm going to split that in half around the hook, like so. Just wetting your fingers helps here. Just pushing it around to the side. Doesn't always want to go where you want it. Up we go, back up the other way, and then back across the top, like so. And then I'm going to build a dam up the front here in exactly the same way. This is where having the bigger bobbin, the Magnum bobbins, really works, because I'm used to using tiny little bobbins that just fit in the palm of my hand. This just makes short work of the turns, and keeping the turns close to the hook. You know, the amount of material you have here quite short reduces the amount of energy you're using, I suppose, and you can get more wraps in much more quickly. Then you have a look at it and you just prod it and see where you're going to go with that. And then you take another piece of the sculpting fiber. If you can't find the bit that you had earlier, it's gone. Pick a bit off and quickly go through the same process. Cut that in half. I'm going to put an X tie in. Might have a little bit too much there, so we'll get rid of that. Now this X tie, I want these bits to be shorter than the last. Again, we're tapering the fly down. I'm going to place it over the top. 1, 2, and 3 in an X shape. Now, if like me, you look at that and go, hang on, that's too long. What you need to do is just take that off and just adjust it and go, right, okay, so I wanted that amount. I'm going to need that amount there. So I'm just going to trim that off a bit. There we go. Retwizzle to get the taper. And then back on again. So it's worth checking and making sure you're happy with the positioning. 1, 2, and a third lot. There it goes. And we've got this other end. It's amazing how much longer it gets when you twist it. As I said, it's quite therapeutic. About the same length. Come in, give a second. X tie across the top, 1, 2. Position that. There we go. Get those in. And then draw them back across the side of the fly. And come over the top. of this section. And tie down. Now we're getting very close to the eye now, so we need to be mindful of that. You don't want to crowd the eye too much. Although taking it right up to the eye is not a problem on these patterns.
She said my stuff was coming today.
Yeah,
And there we go.
have a look outside, it hasn't been delivered. Have a look in the tub.
And you can see the sort of profile that we're starting to get. If you find that you've got a bit that isn't quite pushed back enough, that will happen. There we go. Not too worried about that. There we go. Okay. So we're almost there. We're almost at the end point to finish it. So we're going to put a contrasting color across the top compared to the throat. And you can do all sorts of things. If it was one of my perch patterns here, we'd be putting some red in and some green across the top, you know, just to give it that extra pop, I suppose. So I'm going to use this browner color. This is a caddis tan, and I'm using this because baby mullet have got this slightly brown, very, very light tan coloring across the top. So I'm going to go through the same process. Actually, I've got a bit that came out there. That'll do. So I've got this bit here. So I'm going to give it a twizzle. Just check. Maybe I need a little bit more. I'm just going to take a little bit more off the hank and add that in. Give it a twizzle. And it's going to go across the top. I'm just going to get rid of that end bit. Don't like that. Just a little bit too straggly at the end there. In fact, a light nip. I'm coming in towards the top section there. I'm going to do hollow tie. 1, 2, 3. Give it a little trim, and then I'm going to come back in with my silver bait fish. I don't need a lot of this. You see what I mean about all the fluff getting everywhere? It's all over the place now. I don't need a lot of this, so I'm not going to take a full section off the hank. I'm just going to bring it in. Probably want about a quarter of the length. And again, I'm going to taper it. Like so. Tapered. Turn it upside down. I'll put this in across the bottom in exactly the same way. 4 turns, lock it in place. Scissors got caught. That trim. Missed a couple. There we go. And then I'm going to half it here and wrap it round again. And then this top bit just going over the top like that. Build up this front head section with a dam of thread. front of it, you can start to see the profile pattern that we're starting to get. Any questions so far, guys and ladies? Right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with some.
They're all on
Unimylar.
mute at the moment, Mark.
Pardon?
They're all on mute at the moment.
Oh, excellent. I'm going to put. I'm going for Unimylar now, size 12 and a glass of wine. The wine's for me. The Unimylar's for the fish. So, this is gold and silver. Gold one side, silver the other. And I literally, I want it to come down the side as a lateral line, sort of along the side there. So, and I want it quite long. I want it to extend beyond. I want it to extend beyond the tail, because we want it as an attractor. Okay. So, and you could put all sorts of mylar in this. You could put crystal flash as part of the tail, as part of the X ties to get that extra flash in there. There's all sorts of holographic tinsels you can get as well in Hanks that do exactly the same job, and it's just an X tie. So I'm just going to place that in on the side, and I'm just going to have a look at it to make sure it's in the right place and that it is down the center line. And you have silver facing this way. And I'm going to lock that into place. And then come in and give it a nip. Just make sure that that is in the position I want it to be in. It does have a tendency to move around, so really lock it down as tight as you can. With these bits at the front, you start to see the lateral line of the bait fish just starting to develop, and I'm going to do the same on the other side. And in they come. Give it a trim. You can use whatever you like. On others I've used like a rainbow mylar or that. But one of my favorite mylars is the peacock orange mylar. Given half a chance, I'll use that on any fly that I can, to be fair. I try and incorporate it into as many of my tungsten nymphs as possible, because I reckon it attracts fish, I've decided. Have no scientific evidence of that, just my fisherman's feel. And there we go. I'm just going to nip right there. And then just tidy up the front. And you don't need to do much more than that. You could add another section on to give it another contrast if you wish, if you wanted to, but let's face it, life's too short, we want to go fishing. So I've got the key parts of the fly. So I'm just going to give it a whip finish. Come in with a whip finish, and then I'm going to just secure that with a double whip finish. Right there. There we go. That little cut. And then it's a case of giving everything a little bit of a twizzle, and that's where your comb comes in, because now what we can do is just give it a little brush through. Now it looks a bit of a mess to start off with, because we're just pushing all of those fibers out. We're going to deal with those in a minute, because the whole aim of the game for this fly is that this back end is going to shed water very quickly on the cast when you bring it back and bring it forward, but the front end is going to be responsible for getting it to sink, as you can imagine that these things will will float quite close, but we're after the fish in the upper sections of the water, so they're going to be chasing. I'll just bring that back. Now, if you've got any errant bits of fiber that are sticking out, you can just trim them off. Got one there. You can go. Any more there? And don't worry if your lateral line is just coming off from the side. That's not a problem at all. Okay, now into the realistic bit. So I've got these the light's a bit bright there, isn't it? These are realistic eyes. I got these from Funky in one of their sales. But just what I found is that if you go on the websites for most like Funky and Fly Time Boutique and Glasgow Angling Centre, they've regularly got predator fibers for sale. And generally I add an extra one to my box when I'm buying stuff, to my inbox, my cart, to make up to a round number, and then I'm gradually increasing the amount that I'm getting. Now I want 2 of these. 1, 2. I'm going to stick them to the top of my finger there because they're easy to get hold of. And then I'm going to come in. I'm going to turn the fly to its side like this. And those of you that watch my Lost Lake Fly Club will know that I like a bit of resin. When I first started fly tying back in the 80s, it didn't exist. We were lucky if we had a bit of Vineyard Celia, but this stuff is a game changer, and I really do like it. And I do try and put it into lots of flies, not my dries though. But basically, what I'm going to do here is I'm coming in and I'm looking on my fly here, around in about this section. That's where I'm going to place my eye, and it covers up that final tie as well, so that we can just make it, we can hide it. So I'm just going to come in now. This is Thin Man. I don't want the thick stuff, so I don't want it to splodge all over the place. You've got I like Gulf resins, okay? They just do the job. They're bang on. And I'm just going to put a drop in that section. I'm going to take an eye and I'm going to place it on the resin. Now the eyes themselves are sticky backed, so they'll hold in place. And then I'm going to come in with my torch and a pair of scissors, and I'm just going to push down, push it in place, and give it a blast. Okay. And then I repeat the process on the other side. But it's really important that we just check positioning. You don't want like a goggle-eyed fish, although it doesn't make a blind bit of difference. Put another drop on. Here we go. Take my eye. And this is why I like the resin so much compared to a glue, because I can move it around now. I can just check it and come in, look for its positioning. There we go. Try and find the scissors that I just put down and now can't find. Never mind. Yeah, another pair of scissors. Push down on the eye, push it into place, hold it.
Hi, Mark.
Okay.
Hi, Derek. Hi, everybody.
Hiya.
I'm a bit late, sorry, but I think I'm at the spot right now because you just put it on some eyes now, and you sealed it with some UV resin.
That's right.
I'd like to admit that my best option is to use some how's it called, super glue in gel for this kind of situation you just demonstrated. Because the super glue in gel is really, really good to be able to switch the eye to the right position and then just press it down. As you compress it, then the super glue will set. And afterwards, I would use some UV resin you maybe showed, like the Gulf or Rayzap or whatever it's on the market. But I really tend to position my eyes with super glue and gel, because you have the time then but it sits a bit better because now when you put the UV resin underneath the eye and you harden it, then the UV resin is like set halfway, you know?
Yeah. No, I will admit that one of the reasons I don't use super glue is because I end up super gluing my fingers together. So I have a nasty history with super glue, but I totally agree. I know that a lot of my pike fly tying friends will use a 2-part epoxy as well. But you know, just in terms of me, it's just for me it's about speed and things like that. But it's a good point, well made. I like that. So we're into this bit so far. Then I'm just going to give it a. I've got these end bits here. I don't want those. I'm just going to get rid of those. Don't want the really tiny little fizzly bits. And as we go through, so now what I'm going to do is put the final touch to it. And for those of you that again that have been on my Lost Lake Fly Club, you know that the use of these dental resin applicators, the sort of things they use for putting on teeth and stuff like that in the dentist when they use the resins and things, are a bit of a game changer for fine work on these sorts of things. So what I'm going to do is actually I'm not going to use this end. I'm going to use the other end. Go.
Deer Creek sell them 6 for £2. Rip off, isn't it?
I bought 300 for $5.99.
There you go.
And I put the link, I believe, up on the group.
Yes, you did. I also found that once you've used it, not that it matters because you buy that many, but if you rub the fibre bit in some tissue, it prolongs the life of it.
Yeah, it can last a couple of days. I've had them on my desk because I put them in the hole in the base of my vise, and I'll come back and I can reuse it the next day. It's quite amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you know,
once you've done that with tissue, you can leave it for weeks.
Exactly. And if you wanted to, because you probably notice here, I've got my resin. I lost the cap of it, so I actually use a little piece of aluminium foil and I just put it over the top. Because anything that's going to stop the ultraviolet light getting to it is perfect. So you could do the same, put a little cap over the top. I'm not going to claim any credit for these. At the BFFI earlier on this year, which was a great show, one of my fly tying idols, Jan de Haas, was there. And I spent a long time just watching him and memorizing everything he was doing and then Googling everything and trying to find out what he was using and asking him questions. So this is for Jan. You know,
he's a great guy, definitely.
Oh man, he's one of my all-time favorites. And I could sit and watch him tie for hours. We reckon he's got bionic eyes. Okay, so I'm just going to pull these fibers now. Now, what I've done is I put a layer of resin just along this thick end. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my bait fish and just at this top end, I'm just going to rub it and spread it along the sides about halfway. And it traps down any errant fibers, but also gives that profile of that front end. And it will also help it to sink at the front. So when it's in the water, it'll give that diving.
And what's the main reason why you do this?
The main reason I'm going to do this is because we put lots of hollow ties in, it contains a lot of air. And I'm just compressing it down just at the front so that the front will allow the fly to sink. And particularly in salt water that's got that increased buoyancy, it will allow it to sink. Yeah. And then it'll pull like this. What I find is that if I leave it, it can just sit in the upper surface, and I have to give it a good few strips to get it to come down. Whereas now it will start to come down straight away to maximize, I suppose, the fly's position in the feeding zone.
So what I'm thinking of when you do that is that the main part of the fly, I mean, not the head, but the body that comes after the head is like not moving that nice. What you really want to, I would say, like prefer using these materials that you used to make the fly swim and behave like a fish, you know, because if you do it like stiff, it will just be like a jerk, you know.
Absolutely. Like and as I said right at the beginning, you know, my learning journey on these has been quite steep. So literally, I'll be honest, I literally started tying these on Tuesday.
Oh, nice.
So I'm gradually learning. So everything you're saying to me is stuff that I'm now embedding in here. And you know, I'll be on the web later, and I'll be buying more fibers and thinner fibers. But one of the things I loved about the BFFI was that I could go and touch stuff, and I could, where possible, take stuff out of packets and have a feel, because you can look at a picture online, can't you? And I can't get the feel for how slim it's going to make a profile, or how much I might need. So, you know, it's a bit of a mind game at times. So the more help we can give each other, the better. And then it's a case of just, you know, when you're ready, you know, you could that's fishable. Just check that out. You could then add some more resin to the head and the eyes just to cover them if you wished, to protect them. I'm not going to do that today because it just take a little bit too much time. You could use some Sharpie to color different color at the head, and you know, those are the processes to then develop into. Where's he gone? Oh, there he is. You know, this was version number 3.
Nice perch. Wow.
So that was my 3rd ever one. You know, so we're going to give that a swim on Sunday. Although he's too pretty, I've decided. My daughter's been wandering around with him, stroking him and saying, "Look at my dead budgie." You know, but yeah, so, you know, that's what I love about fly tying, is that we can progress, because I grew up tying dog nobblers and all those sorts of things for the South Wales reservoirs, and then having to tie teal blue and silvers and sea trout patterns and things, Invictas and things like that. Fin cameras didn't exist and all that. And what I really love doing is just trying new techniques. I've been playing with wire weaving this week as well, Houdini wire weave. So you know, it's just a bit of fun, And there we go, my big eye bait fish. It's only on a size 6 hook, so it's a tiny little one. But then I experimented, and I thought, well, I fish for trout mainly, so I thought I'd use the same techniques on a size 8 long shank, and that's getting a swim at Diva Springs.
Okay.
I reckon on a sinking line off the bottom, I might get a few hits on that.
Sorry to interrupt again. I'm really not in the mood to just I would say, like, only tell you about the details that you messed up, but this fly I have seen in the last few 5 seconds, you have a gap from the hook that's really nice, but you did a head that's like the gap is not needed anymore because the hook is just underneath it like a tiny bit. And I would say, like, if the fish grabs this fly, you might increase hooking rates when you do the head a bit more slim and more tiny, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It originally started out, it was going to be a sand eel. But then I got a bit carried away, and I started spinning marabou and stuff onto it as well. And by the time I'd done it and realized it was the wrong thing to do, I just went, oh well, let's try and resurrect this particular one. But you know, this is why trial and error is so important, isn't it?
Definitely, of course.
Yeah.
I'm like using UV glue for, I would say, like the entire life of fly tying for me, and I definitely develop for me using UV resin the best way I can, and the best way my clients can, and stuff like that. And to recommend using super glue, I would, sorry to say that, but just hit my button on YouTube, and I have some really nice stuff. I think everybody in this chat right now has seen it already before. I like to do the heads kind of compact, small, and really what you said, like it's about jigging, you know, that
Yeah.
you have a bit of weight in the front, and the less material you use, the less it jigs, the less you can, or the better you can fish it slow, and the more you use it, it's like more usable for the summertime, when the fish is or the prey is really in action mode and swimming around like heavy. And in the wintertime you use less of it, just to ensure that the bait is swimming like the prey in the wintertime, because it's slow, you know, it's really slow fishing. And right now we have, I would say, like it's from one to the other, because we have like switching times right now. So for me, it's like now fishing small, because the prey is active, and we need to kind of fish like slow also. But give me 2.5 or 3, maybe 4 weeks, then we need to fish very fast, or faster than today. And then we need more UV resin or more weight in the front, so that you can jig it a bit more active.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we need to the baits. We need the baits a bit more active or disactive or whatever. It depends on the situation we have during the year. But the shape of your flies, I like it. It looks like a really nice bait fish, and I would say like the pike can't resist.
No, well, let's hope so on Sunday, because I've never caught a pike apart from a little 6-inch little thing like that on a blue flash damsel.
Mark, just 2 quick questions for you, mate. Right, that's obviously a saltwater fly. You said a 6-7 weight. What sort of line would you use for that? Would it sinking line, or I don't know? I know nothing about. Sorry, I know nothing about saltwater fishing.
We tend to primarily fish, if we're down fishing from the beach, we're on a floating line.
Okay.
Because we're on the we're fishing off the beach. It's not a deep shelving beach, so it's almost a bit like flats fishing at times. So we don't want it to go too deep. The fish are in the upper sections of the water, and particularly the mullet, you know, which of course I wouldn't use this for. I'd use the other patterns that I've got. But the mullet, they're always in the upper section of the water, and they're dead easy to find, but catching them is a completely different kettle of fish. And in fact, half the time they'll come and swim around your ankles while you're fishing for them. And it's really frustrating. Whereas bass, as we know, they're quite hard to find, but once you've found them, they're voracious feeders. So and they're going to be hitting fish and pushing them up to the surface, because the fish, those little bait fish, got nowhere else to go then. So
right, second question. I like the shape of your landing net behind you there. What make is that?
That is a Witchwood Rover.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great net. Hopefully they've adjusted it, but there's only one issue with it, which is the pin that goes through the center for when it flips. It comes out.
Guess what I'll get it for my birthday.
Yeah, it's a lovely net, that is.
Okay, mate. Thank you.
It's a lovely net. It's landed a couple of big fish, that one. Anything else, guys? Thank you for that. Thank you for the input as well, because it's really important, and it's all part of the learning process. Okay, so
Sorry, but you talked about the mullet flies. I'm really new to mullet. I would say like kind of, I never caught one. But I would really appreciate if you would like showing me your best pattern on mullet.
I'll be back.
For me, it's always like using something that looks weedy and like I would say like not prey. It's just like something that that has grown on the subsurface. You know, just something like weeds and stuff.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, so what we're looking at here is Colin McLeod talks and writes, and if you ever get to speak to him, he's so passionate about mullet. But he talks about Romy sand shrimp, the fly that he designed. And this is my version of the Romy sand shrimp. And it's literally, it's got no weight to it apart from the hook, because actually we want it to be in the upper levels of the water. It's got a pink tag on it. It's got a little tag underneath in yellow, shell back with a bit of resin across the top. But this Hen's spectra dubbing running down through here. And you can change the color for different types of water, and depending on the coloring of the water. You cast it out, and you basically dead drift it.
Okay.
And they hit it like a freight train.
So this is like a shrimp with a heavy tag end, isn't it?
Yeah, and because most of the time they're feeding on shrimp. When you say they've been feeding in the algae, what they're doing is siphoning off the diatoms and other small animals that are there contained within it. But at the same time, I was absolutely fascinated by watching them feed through some algae that was in the surface. So I'm determined to catch them next season on like this little hopper in the surface.
Nice. That one looks really crazy.
Yeah, I'm gonna try it. I've got no idea if it's gonna work, but I'm gonna try it.
But is it made with foam and wiggle legs and a bit of dobbing, or what's it about?
It's got a foam back and thorax area. Close cell foam, so that floats. And underneath, the legs are made with Semperfly straggle string in different colors. And it's got these little rubber legs here just as an attractor, I suppose. I've got this one, and I've also tied a complete CDC humpy as well, in green, in olive, that just sits in the surface and just floats. And I've not caught a mullet on one of those yet. I'm determined to try.
But this one you showed me a few seconds before, it looks very, very nice. So this maybe is also good for catching like perch, you know?
Well, you can catch trout on that. You catch a grayling on it. You can catch. I've caught chub on it. I've caught all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
And then sort of
bloodworm.
Like a like a bloodworm, with some straggle legs sticking out. It's got seed beads with a light coating of resin across the top. I've caught carp on that as well.
Nice.
So, it's I'm still very new into the whole mullet world myself. I'm off out with Colin and a few other people and Paul Jennings in August. Let's see what happens.
Good luck. Good luck, mate.
Right. Okay. Where did I get to? I've got so much fiber on my desk now. Let me move it.
I know that problem.
It's when the cats come in as well. That gets even worse. That's what I want. Right, so next fly is just for a bit of fun, really, but it's techniques more than anything. It's going to be a shrimp, so you could use it for mullet, I suppose. I'm going to use one of my favorite hooks, which is the Fulling Mill Check Nymph hook, the 5065. So versatile, I can use it for absolutely anything. I've tied dry flies on this, and it works really effectively as well. So what I'm going to do with this is find my bobbin. So I'm going to use it's a 12 pale olive Semperfli wax thread, and I'm just going to tie it on.
That hook for me looks like really good for hooking in a fish, because the hook gap is quite perfect, you know.
Absolutely, I love it. It's that's why it's one of my favorites. If I could, I'd tie every fly on it. And that's why on my YouTube channel, I use it a lot. Now I'm going to use a bit of partridge. I was lucky enough to pick up some Hungarian Orvis partridge for a couple of quid rather than the 40 quid that would cost. I think it cost me 4. And it's beautiful stuff, but I just need one feather, and I'm just going to tie in.
How's the fly called you're tying right now?
It's I call it a spiral shrimp.
Spiral shrimp, okay.
Yeah, spiral shrimp. And the techniques are there for great shrimps, but there's a little catch in it that just makes it for a bit of fun. So I want some antenna, some feelers for my shrimp. So I'm just going to pull off a section, place that in. Look, yeah, that's enough there. Pinch wrap, hold it down and up, and tie those down. And then bring my thread halfway down. Just cover over those end sections. So I'm just going to adjust the position in my vise. Do the same at the other end. You don't have to.
My bobbin would have been falling off right now, and the whole feather would be gone.
Well, do you know? Remember I said earlier those magnetic fly patches. Well, let me just.
Okay.
It's holding it in place, so that isn't going anywhere. Not unless I let it. So I'm just going to bring that in. Bring my thread further down. It's up to you. It doesn't matter how far around you take it, as long as you don't go too far. But quite like a nice shape on my shrimp. So I'm just going to do the same at this end. Pinch wrap up, hold on to the top. A couple of lock-in turns, and I'm going to tie those in. Just
Is it just me or is Mark frozen?
slice off. It's about the just.
I think that's really what you're doing right now is the main thing for building up a really good shrimp, and the technique of this is very, very hard.
Okay, so I've cut that. It's adhesive, and I've got lots of it to play with. So I'm just going to place it across the top, and I'm going to put my fingers just on the top, pinch, bring it across the top.
Excuse me for interrupting, Mark.
Yeah.
Did anybody else's Wi-Fi drop out then?
Again, sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
mine did,
Derek,
Derek.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, mine did as well, yeah.
Uh,
you're back to recording again, mate.
yeah, it's still recording.
Yeah,
Okay.
Just pay your bills, Bill.
exactly.
Uh,
Do you want some 50p's, Derek?
Yes, please, Pete.
So I put that first layer on. And then I've got plenty of lead here. I'm then going to put a second layer on, but slightly shorter. And just just push it down with my finger, and build up that profile across the top, and then back up again. Just nip it off. And depending on how heavy you want it and how much of a profile, but I'm going to give it a profile in a bit, in a different way. I'm just going to tie that across the top. So I've got multi-layers of lead. Nip it off. Just on the top of the hook like that. And then I'm going to bring my thread back round to the base. And then I'm going to take my hook and just reposition it like that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some wire. This is Hen's wire. I do like Hen's wires. It's the 0.18 mil wire. And take my wire cutters, just give it a nip. Like that. There we go. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, what have I done with that? Oh, there it is. I'm going to take a needle and I'm literally going to hold my wire like that. And I'm going to spiral it around my needle. Like so. So I'm forming a spring. And I'm just gonna do a little bit more. There we go. I'm gonna pull the end bits down on either side. There we go. And then I can slide that off. And I've formed, where's my camera at this end? Formed a little spiral. I'm afraid it doesn't autofocus, but I formed a little spiral there. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this end bit and I'm going to tie it into the back end of my shrimp. And just tie that down so it's on the top. And I'm just going to bring the wire around. Helps build the profile as well. There we go. And then I'm going to worry this bit off. Off it goes. And I'm going to come all the way back round. Back down to this bit. And I'm going to totally ignore that spring now. That'll come into play in a moment. I'm going to take some ostrich. So I've got some, this is natural drab ostrich. You can put whatever color you like in, to be honest. It's just the first one I actually pulled out today. I love using ostrich, not just like this, but I like stripping it and using it as hurl bodies as well. You know, rather than just use peacock. You know, you get nice segmentation with it. I'm just going to take off one barbule, and I'm going to take the very fine end, which is a little bit too fine for me. I'm just going to trim that off, and then I'm going to place it to the side, and then
Say you strip the earls off that.
Do I strip it? Not in this, not for this one, but you can with a rubber.
Oh, can you?
Yeah. So
Didn't realise that.
So my favourite one for stripping is the Winsor & Newton Griffin Eraser, because it's quite hard. It's a Goldilocks one. It's quite hard and quite soft, so it's somewhere in the middle.
Right.
And it's one that works really well. So I tend not to buy stripped quills. What I do is I buy peacock eyes in different colours from Steve at Cookshill, and then in an evening when I'm watching telly, I just strip a few, and you get a couple of flies out of each.
But you can do that with ostrich earl as well.
Sorry, say that again.
You can do that with ostrich earl as well then.
Yeah, it's a lot more delicate, but yes, you can.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, you can.
Mark, sorry to interrupt you, but I'm looking at the wire you just twisted, and I'm really curious about what you're doing with it. I just want to know before what you do, but what's the main reason why you did that?
I'm going to tell you in a minute. I missed your name, by the way.
Alois, sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, no, it'd be like telling you whether or not the main character dies at the end of the movie, wouldn't it? You know, I'm not going to do that today. So I'm just going to take this. I'm just going to now use this to wrap around in touching turns to form the underbody. Now you could do this with dubbing. You could do it with all sorts of materials, really. Straggle string, straggle legs. I quite like ostrich because, especially if you can get some that's got really long, tiny micro barbules on each of the barbules, you can get a really nice leggy effect. I'm just going to bring this up. Before anybody asks, I'm not using hackle pliers just mainly because when I was a kid, I never had any. So I'm so used to using my own fingers that it's just the natural thing for me to do. So I'm just going to come in, trim that off. You can see that we've started to develop this this fluffy body idea. So what I'm now going to do, I'm just going to wet my fingers. I'm just going to just bring it down. You can see all of that from the top can form some nice legs of the shrimp. In like that. Now, if there's any fibers that are just in the way, just trim those off. Don't want to go where you want them. Just keeping it a little bit damp. There we go. Okay, so we got that into place. I've got my feeders at the end. I've got my legs, and then I've got my thread here. What I am going to do, because I do have a tendency to just knock my bobbin occasionally, is I'm just going to put the whip finish there just to give myself some security after all that work, and then attach it to my magnetic so it just keeps it there. So what I'm now going to do is come back to some resin. Okay, Derek's chuckling to himself now because he knows that I like a bit of resin. And I'm going to go back to my dental stick. I'm going to take some thin resin this time, and I'm just going to run it across the top. Now, I'm not using the really thick stuff here. I'm using the thin stuff, just literally because I don't want to build up profile. I want it to trap down the hairs, but I don't want it to run, and it's really controllable with these. And I'll come in with my torch. Give it a blast. Cure that. Now that's going to hopefully keep those legs pointing down. So I haven't had to trim any off or mess around with my scissors. There we go. I'll come back to that in a bit. Now, what I'm then going to do is I'm going to switch to some thicker classic resin. If I can get in the bottle. Now, for this, I like to use a needle actually, because I do find it gives me quite a lot of control. So I'm going to take my resin, apply it to my needle, and then I'm going to place it in the middle of the shrimp and just gradually just work it so that I'm starting to form the dome of a shrimp shape. Like so. And what I find with the peacock is that the resin, the magnifying effect of the resin, you know, if you know much about optics, it really brings out the segmentation of the hurl. So it's almost like a shellback of a shrimp. And I'm just going to do another one of those just on the top. Form that shape. I'll do for the moment. Give it a blast. Okay, now glad you returned because now the spiral's coming in.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
I know what you looking for it.
So I'm now going to take my spiral and keeping it in the same plane as the body. I'm going to stretch it a bit. And I'm going to bring it over the top.
And that's going to make the body a bit more like heavy, or not heavy, but more like a silhouette and a bit more shiny.
It's going to give it some scaffolding as well.
Yeah.
So, and then I come in, I'm just going to tie that down across the top. Like that. And you can see we've got it forming that shrimp shape there.
Boom. Looks really nice.
Does have a tendency to start to move. So make sure you've got quite a few turns on. And then hold it and just worry it away as you would normally, hoping that you have got it secured. Because otherwise you're buggered.
You'll need another bottle of resin in a minute.
Funny enough, I ordered 3 more today. I had so many extra points for one of the stores that I managed to get a couple of bottles free.
Blimey. Are you drinking the stuff?
No, I just, Derek will tell you, I'll stick it on anything, literally.
Yeah.
If I can get away with it, it's going on a fly. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to form my head with some whip finishes. Pop it down. And we come in and take that off. Okay, so we've got this nice dome shape here. This is where I come in with my classic resin, my needle, and I'm literally now going to fill in the gaps and use the resin, the thicker resin, because it will stay where it is, to fill in those sections, and use gravity just to draw it down. Come in the other side. Connect those up. Come in with my needle and just stroke the resin into place. Just across the top. So it fills in the spiral. Like so. And then give it a blast. So I can see vapors coming off the resin here. Man, now there is another reason why I like resin. It's quite a nice smell.
Yeah.
And now I'm just going to put the finishing touches to the top, and I'm going to put a layer of resin just across the top. And then bring it close down to the eye as well. Now, I don't want it to be really fat on the sides. I want it to sort of be to come in a concave shape, with most of it in the center. I'm just going to add a bit to the front. Give it that taper. And ultimately, you stop adding when you're ready, when you feel that you've got everything that you want. Now, I quite like to get it so that the spiral is very much embedded in the resin.
That looks really effective.
It is, and it's a great one, you know, to do at parties.
You need to get out more. You really do.
I seriously do. I seriously do.
No, it's that sniffing that blooming resin that does it.
Well, that and drinking red wine at the same time.
Oh, dear.
I actually, it's living in England. You know, so
we do trips back to Wales if you want.
Yeah.
You'd have to kidnap me, I think. And now my final bit is,
Sally,
I've had lots of bad experiences with resin, particularly a certain one that begins with B and has a second word that begins with B. That just never, it was always tacky. And golf is great and it hardens up, particularly if you allow it to finish in sunlight. I made the mistake of tying some of these in the conservatory one summer's day. Don't do that. And I'm just gonna give it a brush.
Oh, Sally.
Sides and the top. There we go.
That really pops.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Really, really pops. And you can change the color. You know, it looks really good with a copper spiral in it as well. Bright red is really good as well with an olive ostrich hill on a very small size. Now, I tie these down to size 18.
Well, okay.
And yes, I do use them on the river, and they do catch fish.
Wow.
The paint could be good for graining, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I just thought it's a bit of fun, but it's also techniques. It's coordination. It's just getting the things into play each time. And I hope you enjoyed that.
That's excellent.
I can see that with a little orange hotspot in the middle.
Yeah. Gammerous, yeah.
Absolutely. If you if you go to my website, you'll see that I do one that has got just that, Derek. It's got a bit of golf. Well, I haven't got the right color here, but I've got ones that I put golf fluoro pink right in the center. And some of my best fights with grayling have been on shrimp patterns like that. So there we go. So there's my two.
Excellent.
I hope that's been up to standard.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much, mate.
We might invite you again, Mark.
That's okay. I'm full of bright ideas.
I thought you said you were going to do a dry fly as well.
I could do the dry fly if you still got
Yes,
time.
please.
Yeah, do it. Go for it.
I'm just,
we've got plenty of time.
Just got to find the hooks now. What do I do with them?
Right, I've got to leave you, love you and leave you, lads. So enjoy the night.
No,
Cheers, mate.
thank you for being here.
I give it.
Can I go in?
All right. North Star, Boyle.
North Star.
See you Tuesday. Take care.
Let me just have a little tidy up of my area. Look, I got fiber everywhere.
Blimey.
I know it's it's like deer hair. If you're gonna tie them, don't tie anything else.
Yeah.
Just tie them and then clear up.
Yeah.
You know, because it's too much hassle.
You'll be in trouble with the war department.
Well,
Ooh.
I have a very,
Cool.
very understanding lady wife. I got to
Okay.
say. Oh man, there's a puppy.
Yeah, that's a puppy. Yeah,
Sidetrack me with a puppy. Oh, that'll do it every time.
I'm training him with some. I would say in Germany, Leberwurst. You know?
Oh, yeah, a bit of sausage. So was the spiral as you expected it?
He's doing everything for it, and the spiral, yeah. Before you showed me what you did, I was like, what is he doing with that? But now with the resin and stuff, perfect.
Well, you know, it's how I roll.
Boom.
You know, I quite like taking patterns and just putting my own spin on them, and just because nothing's new. I'm not going to claim anything is new. So next pattern that I'm going to tie is a dry fly pattern that catches me a lot of fish on the chalk streams.
Okay.
We've noticed over the years that the hatches that we used to get years ago just don't happen anymore, as we know, across the country, particularly on our chalk streams. And we can go a long time and you'd be there all day and the temperatures can be right and you just don't get a hatch. But what we do have a lot of is sedge. So some of my favorite patterns and the ones that I will always have in my box are going to be sedge patterns. And again, on the fly club, I've done quite a few sedge patterns. My all-time favorite dry fly is the Elk Hair Caddis. It's such an effective pattern. Tiny graylings seem to love it. It's very weird. But I'm going to tie a sedge pattern that's called the Retirer Sedge, but with a little twist to it. I'm going to use a size 12 hook. Now I tie these down to an 18 because, of course, you know, size does matter. And sometimes they just want very, very tiny flies. So I'm going to leave about 2 mils from the eye, give myself some space. I'm going to run my thread all the way down to approximately where the barb would be on this barbless hook. And I'm just going to get rid of the waste. And then I'm going to come in with, I've got some grey antron here. I reckon in my drawer I've got enough antron to keep the world going. Don't know about you guys. It just seems to multiply. What's happening? I'm just going to trim that off, and I'm not too worried at this point about how much I put on because I'm going to trim it. So I'm just going to place it on the top. The ubiquitous pinch wrap up traps on the top. Going to bring that round. And hold it in there. And then just going to trap it down across the top about halfway. A little bit more. There we go. About halfway. 45-degree little trim. Taper that end bit up. Here we come. Now with this end bit here, I don't want. It's sort of a. It could be mimicking a shuck. You could do it in green, so it could be an egg sac. Grey seems to work really well on the river, so that's why I do it in grey. And I'm just going to trim that off really quite short. Okay, really quite short. Now I'm just going to reach up and look for. Got some Semperfli Old Gold 0.1 mil wire here. I want a very fine wire rib on this just to give it a bit of protection. I like my dry flies to be able to be used where possible as many times as possible. And you know, we do get the odd one that gets chewed up, but I found by putting a very fine metal rib through the body, I can prolong the life of my flies. And I reckon I must only fish with 3 to 4 dry flies in a season now, and this is one of them. Bring that down. There we go. Now for some dubbing. If I can figure out what I did with it. Over here. Trout Stalker.
Yes.
Roughly dubbing. I buy this every time I need some. If I just need one packet, I found that I end up buying the whole range each time. And it's really quite bad, but I just love it. It's just amazing stuff. We're going to use the fiery brown for this. And you can see what I've done is I've transferred them all to these little segmented packs. And I just need a little pinch. And I'm going to form a dubbing noodle. Spread it out. There we go. And no matter how tight you get it, I find with Andrew's scruffy dubbing that it just pops out all the time, which is great. I can give it a little stroke a bit later on. And I'm just going to build up quite a fine body. I don't want it too thick and bulbous. I'm going to take it about 3/4 of the way down the shank. Don't worry if you go back over it. And then finish about, what do I reckon? I reckon it's about 4 mils before the eye. And then I'm going to take my rib and I'm going to wrap it in the opposite direction to my wrapping of the dubbing. I'm going to put in 4 equally spaced turns just to give it that bit of extra protection. Tie that down. I'm going to worry that off. There we go. Okay, so next stage is I'm going to put a wing in. I'm going to use Nature's Spirit deer hair. I've tried lots of different deer hair. Nature's Spirit is just one of the best around, I found, in all its different types. It's often on sale in Funky Fly Tying. If you ever see it, it's worth getting hold of. And this is spinning deer hair, so I use this to spin as well, as you can probably tell. I've got quite a lot missing. I'm a bit OCD with how I cut it. So I'm looking to put a wing in here. That is going to add to the profile of sort of a sedge wing. So I need a little bit more than that, because they've got really tent-like wings that come over the back. I want this to look like a fluttering sedge, so that not totally across the back, but enough so that it's giving that profile in the water. Because I'm fishing in gin clear water where the fish can see us, we can see them. And I just need my hair stacker. I'm just going to get rid of the fluffy bits out of the end. Just give the tips a pull to see if there's any bits that are really short. And again here. And I found with Nature's Spirit is that actually it's quite well stacked already. So you don't have to do a lot. They're coastal deer hair, you never have to stack. it is almost perfect. Give it a tap. And then come in. Take my tips. There we go. Give it a second, brush out of any loose fibers and any short sections. And then I'm going to offer it up to the body. Now I don't want it to come right back. I want it to be just short of the tail. And I'm just going to put in a pinch wrap. Now you could use some wax on this. I tend not to because I just forget. I just give it a pull up and that tightens it down, and then I put a couple of extra wraps in. Like so. And I've got my wings starting to be positioned, so I'm just putting those in, just tightening it down. It's not going to spin, it's not going to move. There we go. And then I'm going to come in at 45 degrees, trim off the waist, and then tidy that up. Right, so got the key parts of my sedge in. Now that in itself would float. I was tying this a couple of summers ago, and my little nephew, whose name is Nevan, which is a Slovakian name, I believe. He said, "Could you put a bit of yellow in?" I thought, why not? And actually, I found that I can see it on the water a lot better if I put a little bit of yellow in as well. And I don't mix it. I just take, and again, a small amount as a sighter. Quick stack and clean up. And it goes. And then I'm just going to bring it in. And it's at this point where you can decide if you've got too much or not enough. I'm just going to bring it in. I'm just going to place it across the top, about right. Same process again. And it just sits on the top, and it really does allow you to see it in the water. Particularly when you get to very small sizes. But then sizes and everything, because we've had very small grayling take size 10 stimulators off the surface. So there we go. So look. Yep, that's right. Okay, so next stage, which is the little twist, is I've got all the Petit-Jean stuff, but I'm going to use this is a hairline feather prepper. I don't know if you've seen this, come across this before. It's just a foam block with slits in it, and they're all different lengths. But it allows me very quickly to prep a number of feathers if I was going to use them for split thread work or dubbing loops and things like that. So I'm going to take a CDC feather. Now this is Mark Petit-Jean CDC feathers. This is in old yellow. Doesn't really matter what color. And I'm just going to draw all the barbules back. I'm going to hold it at each end, and I'm going to find an appropriate section on here that matches the length of my feather. And I'm just going to hold it in and push down with the ends, and it stands upright like that. And then I'm just going to trim these off. Now I've got the Petitjean plastic ones that do this, and they are fantastic. But actually, this is quite quick and easy just for me to have. And sometimes I've got multiples of them all lined up, ready to go, if I'm tying a lot of flies. Then I'm going to come in with my clip. So this is a Petitjean clip. It's the spring on it is fantastic. You could use a bulldog clip for this, but I just find that they hold things too tight, or sometimes they just slip. So you know, this is a really good investment. So I'm going to take my clip. I'm going to place it down to hold the sections, and I'm going to lift it and pull it out. I'm lifting my feather like that. And then I'm going to take a big pair of scissors. It's easier to do this in verbally one swipe. I'm going to trim off the stem of the feather as close to it as possible. Now you could stack feathers. You could have two colors in here. You could put one on top of the other. I'm only going to use one here. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to try and split the thread after sniffing all that golf resin and drinking red wine. So
Man,
yeah, that's why I love this. It's great.
How many threads can you see though?
12. I've got 12 at the moment. I'm just going to slide my needle down, and still can't see it, and give it a split. Man, proud of myself. There we go.
Well done.
I'm going to take my clip, put the whole clip through, and then draw my thread back and bring the feather further up and let go. And it will automatically start to spin because of the twists we've already got in the thread. And I'm just going to give it a little spin. Now I've got loads on there, more than I'm going to use on this one. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start right back here at the base of the deer hair. I'm going to put a wrap in, and I'm going to draw everything back. I'm going to put a wrap in, draw everything back. I'm going to work my way forward towards the front of the fly, like so. Maybe I will use all of this. Let's see. Yeah, let's use all of it. Let's not be wasteful. And then when I get to there, I'm just going to build up the head of my fly. Okay. And I'll come in. And whip finish. 1. Trim that off, and then take a look at it. And if there's any really long fibers, just give them a trim with your nail. Don't use scissors. There we go. Now that beauty will float all day if you look after it. And it will take fish when everything seems not to work. Can't explain the magic, but we all know how effective CDC can be. Yeah. You know, having these in the box is always worth it. What I also do is tie a sedge hog with a CDC front as well, which is really effective as well. Because it's got the yellow on it, and my nephew asked if I could put that on it. I call this one the NEVANATOR.
What, sorry?
The NEVANATOR, because his name's Nevin. The NEVANATOR, because it always catches me fish, and he's always gets really excited. You know, so
the camera.
Pardon?
Can you hold it a bit close to the cameras and
I
see?
can, but what it doesn't do is focus. So what I will do after we finish here, I'll photograph all the flies I've tied tonight.
Super.
And put them up in the WhatsApp group and stuff, because I like doing that. And you'll be able to see what it looks like.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Could you
I
add the
tend not
material
to-
list as well, Mark?
Yes, I'll put material lists up for you as much as I can remember them. But yeah, definitely the material lists. And please feel free to contact me if you need anything. If you say, "Oh, hang on, I forgot about that step. What happened? How did you do it?" But I tie these down to an 18. Tying down to a 20 is just, life's too short.
Mark?
Yep.
You were drinking red wine. Can you tell these flies were drinking a white wine?
I think you need to go and wash your mouth out.
Sorry.
To be fair. Next, you'll be saying I have to drink decaffeinated coffee.
Good
Oh.
Lord.
That's never happening. Never happening. But no, I'll after I finish with you guys, I'll start. I've got a bottle of Talisker over here. I might start that.
Oh, good man.
Oh,
Good
Yeah.
man.
Little fly tying club.
Yeah. What's
Yeah.
your address again?
That's more like it.
Yeah. So I hope that was up to scratch, folks.
Good stuff. Yeah.
And
Thank you, Mark.
Brilliant.
Cheers, mate.
plenty more where they came from.
Good. Excellent.
Thank you very much,
really
Mark.
nice.
Yeah.